Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. And today, we are wrapping up our trip through Mussorgsky with, we're going to finish with like a bunch of operas, I think. Well, I mean, it's not that he wrote a bunch of operas. He only sort of kind of finished one and another almost sort of kind of. But let's begin instead with Byron Janis doing Pictures in an Exhibition quite splendidly, along with a couple Chopin sniglets and the Mussorgsky Ravel one with Dorati and the Minneapolis Symphony Orchestra. This is worth having more for the Byron Janis than for the Dorati. But I mean, Dorati's okay, but boy, the Janis Pictures is wonderful. And this was its first release ever. I mean, it really was. I mean, back when this came out on CD, I remember Wilma Cozart saying, "Oh, it's terrific. It's our first time we're putting it on CD," or ever. It was sitting in the can. I don't know whether it was approved or unapproved, but here it is. So that's good to have. It's a very, very fine performance. It really is. Then we've got, let's see, who's doing this one? Ernest Bour. Oh, yeah, with the SWF Symphony Orchestra, Baden-Baden. You've got Ravel, Bolero, and La Valse, and Pictures in an Exhibition. This is cool. Ernest Bour was a wonderful conductor. I mean, he doesn't get any attention these days. He's not even on my conductor lists. Sorry. I mean, but he was the immediate successor to Hans Rosbaud, and he had very similar tastes and talents. He was kind of a musician's musician, and these are beautiful performances. I mean, you want to have some more like percussion and stuff, but what the hell, they do a good job. What's this one? Noriko Ogawa plays Mussorgsky. This is Pictures in an Exhibition, but also lots of other stuff. Transcriptions and from the operas, and we had from Khovanshchina and Boris Godunov and Sorochinsky Fair, and then Pictures in an Exhibition. This was a nice disc too. She's a talented pianist, and she made some beautiful recordings for Bis, especially of Debussy piano music. So that's like fun. Some of you have asked, gee, when are you going to get to piano versions of Pictures in an Exhibition? Well, I have a lot of them upstairs. They're in with pianists and pianist boxes, basically, because everything's in a box now. So, to keep them separate, well, they had to overflow. And so a lot of them did. And there's another one, Nikolai Demidenko. Pictures in an Exhibition on Hyperion, along with 10 pieces from Romeo and Juliet by Prokofiev, and the Toccata in D minor. Well, this is nice. I haven't heard it in years. When did it come out? 1997. Okay. Well, I heard it back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And, there's so many things to listen to. I mean, how often can you take them out and listen to them? I mean, there's only one life. And look at all this chazarai here, Pictures in an Exhibition, Vals Noble with Pogo. We have the old Pogo disc. Yeah, well, I mean, I have the Pogo box upstairs, which we've talked about. And so, this made it to the Overflow room, but I kept it because Pogo at its peak was really quite something. It was very, very special. What the hell? Oh, this is wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Carol Ancerl, the Czech Philharmonic, one of the great pictures, and a fabulous night on Bald Mountain. Oh my goodness, it's remarkably exciting and amazingly well played. And we've got Rimsky's Capriccio Espagnol and the Tchaikovsky Capriccio Italien. What a wonderful disc. 72 thrilling minutes of amazing playing and wonderful music. Another Mercury Living Presence. Oh, this is the Kubelik, Chicago, the one that gave Mercury Living Presence the name Mercury Living Presence. A famous Pictures in an Exhibition, and the Bartók Music for Strings, Percussion, and Celesta. I actually think the Bartók's a little more interesting than the Ravel. The Ravel's a little perfunctory. There's such a myth about Kubelik being unjustly and unfairly hounded out of Chicago by Claudia Cassidy, who couldn't stand him, by the way. But he was young and inexperienced and not a very good programmer, because I've seen all the programs that he came up with. And I understand why some people there may have felt he was not ready for the big leagues. He became ready later in his career. But, Claudia Cassidy's position was Chicago Symphony Orchestra is not a training orchestra for inexperienced European conductors looking to do better things. And she was right. So you can sort of hear a little bit of that here. I mean, these are wonderful mono recordings and historical and fun and all that stuff. And they're very good. They really are. And this is the first recording of pictures with Bud Herseth playing the trumpet solo at the beginning, which is kind of cool. He went on to do it like 6 or 7 more times. But if you listen objectively, you begin to understand what some of the issues were. Not that there's anything wrong with these, but yeah, I kind of get the point. So there you go. Then we've got, what's in here? Oh, this is the Szell. Oh, this is wonderful. George Szell in Cleveland. We've already talked about this recording, of course, of pictures, because it's like amazing, with Harry Janos and Lieutenant Kijé. Now, the Harry Janos and Lieutenant Kijé were on a separate disc, originally called Two Musical Fables. And it was one of the rare instances where Szell and Cleveland would sort of let their hair down and do something that was a little lighter and jolly. And oh my goodness, they played it, all of these things, just insanely well. And this is the same thing we just saw, because I have 2 of them sitting here. I don't know why, but they're there. And now we get the operas. You ready? Boris. This is like the great Melodia Boris. It's with Ivan Petrov. And let's see, who's doing what? The kids we don't really care about. Shusky we care about. Georgy Shulpin. And let's see, Pimen is Mark Reshetin, who's wonderful. Grigori, the Pretender is Vladimir Ivanovsky, and Marina Mniszek is Irina Arkhipova, with the Bolshoi people under Alexander Melik Pasheyev, recorded in 1962 in not too dreadful sound. A wonderful, wonderful Boris Godunov. So that's that one. Then we've got the Rostropovich one on Erato with Galina Vishnevskaya as Marina in one of her last roles. I mean, she was past her prime, but she still could sing the living daylights out of the thing. With Ruggero Raimondi and Nikolai Gedda and Paul Plishka, and like those famous people with the National Symphony in Washington, D.C. Rostropovich did some beautiful discs in Washington. He really did. And this was one of them. It was really very, very good. So there's that one. And then there's, this is funny. This is a story. This is Berlin Phil and Abato. Now, I have to tell you the story behind this one, or sort of the history of it. Record companies, classical record companies tend to go bankrupt on opera recordings. For RCA, it was the Leinsdorf-Lohengrin, which got RCA out of the opera business for like a decade afterwards, or for quite a while afterwards. It was a famously expensive production that tanked. Well, this was similar. This really was similar. Abato was, with great fanfare, was signed to Sony with money is no object sort of thing. And he went and redid a lot of things he'd already done for Deutsche Grammophon, like the Rossini Viaggio with half the same cast and whatnot. He felt very, very strongly about making this recording, and rightly so. It's the original version of Boris. It's fabulously played. It's fabulously well conducted. It's a stunning performance. It features Anatoly Kocherga, and Philip Langridge is Shusky, and Grigori is Sergei Larin, and Marina is Mariana Lipovchik, who's just marvelous. And, it's got a lot of other famous people. Sergei Leverkus pops up here and some other things, with the Slovak Philharmonic Chorus and the Berlin Radio Choir, the Tolzer Knabenchor, and the Berlin Phil, Claudio Abato. Okay, it cost a fortune. It's this gold series. You know they're desperate when they start a gold series. Remember the Carrion Gold series? That was like a thing too. So this came out, and it sold less than 1,000 copies worldwide. That's what Sony said, actually, at the time. They were horrified that they were able to spend, that they had to spend that kind of money on such a lavish and expensive production and have nobody care. Because it was at that point, it was what year was this? Let me see. 1993, when the classical industry was self-destructing, having just recorded tons and tons and tons of everything and saturated the market with everything. And Abbado, for all his excellence as an opera conductor, and he was, nobody wanted to hear him do Boris Godunov, even though he felt very strongly about it, even though he should have had the ability to do it, and they should have figured out how to sell the damn thing. They hadn't a clue. So after that, Sony and Abbado and Berlin sort of, they did less. Let's just put it that way. And it was part of the great retrenchment in the classical music world. This was the handwriting on the wall that the industry had just done itself in by issuing gobs and gobs of stuff willy-nilly. And I mean, this is like an iconic exemplar of that. And it's a wonderful Boris Godunov. It's such a shame. It's fabulous. It really is. It's one of the best things Abbado ever did. And one of the fewest people heard one of the best things he ever did. So there you go. And then we've got this thing, Khovanshchina, with Gergiev and Kirov. And this is rather interesting. This is the Shostakovich orchestration, which is splendid, actually. It's really very, very good. Shostakovich's Boris Godunov is also very good. And it's beautiful. I think it, let me see. No, it's the Abbado also did that for DG, did Khovanshchina, right? And he used part of the Stravinsky orchestration too. He did like the final scene or something. Anyway, it's a wonderful performance. All of these Kirov performances were really, really good. I see in the comments when we talk about conductors that everybody's dumping on Gergiev. And as a conductor of orchestral music, I certainly understand that because he wasn't very good at all. But he was terrific in opera. I mean, in these, he restored a huge amount of the Russian repertoire to disc in really fine performances, and you got to give him credit for that. Whatever else you may dislike about him, he may be one of the most annoying conductors ever, but he did do that. So this is his Khovanshchina. The Boris is upstairs. The Boris is the one that has all the different versions. It's your do-it-yourself Heathkit Boris, where you can do the original version or the later version or the revised version or the revised version or the unrevised later, earlier version or whatever you want and just assemble it at your own, if you have the time and the patience, which I don't. Anyway, here you go, Khovanshchina. And with that, we have come to the end of Mussorgsky. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.